Good afternoon. This is Campbell McCrary from Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Gold Bull Resources. Gold Bull trades on the venture as GBRC and as GBRCF on the OTCQB. Hope you enjoyed today's program. It'll be available in replay mode after about an hour and a half once we let up. You can find readily a copy in an email that you're going to get, and at amvestcapital.com/replays. Amvest, of course, is a New York-based investment management and corporate finance firm focused on the natural resource sector. And this call is most definitely for informational purposes only. Before we get started, just wanted to highlight a few things. If you go here, you'll be able to download a copy of this presentation in PDF and some other goodies and websites and stock pages and all that. And here, this is the most important. Please, you can ask a question of management in real time. So just go to that box there, and we'll ask them. And then finally, at the very end, please share your feedback. Either now or later via email. With that, I'm going to pass it to Cherie Leedon, who's the president, CEO, and director of Gold Bull, and it's going to take us through the presentation, and then we'll move into Q&A. Hi.
Thank you, Campbell. Well, welcome to the Gold Bull Resources story. As Campbell said, listed on the OTC and also on the TSX. Gold Bull was born last year as a gold-focused company focused on Nevada in the USA. Shortly after recomplying to become Gold Bull, we acquired the Sandman Project. We acquired it from Newmont. And Sandman is a gold project that's located near the town of Winnemucca, and it boasts a resource of 494,000 ounces of gold. So we feel that that existing resource really underpins our current valuation, and there's a lot more room to grow that resource, which I'll get into this presentation. I'm based here in Nevada, so are our team. Our exploration VP and our exploration manager both relocated to Nevada to really add ounces to Gold Bull and make Gold Bull a successful gold exploration and development company. Share price is in the low 20s at the moment. It gives us a market cap of less than 25 million Canadian, with that 500,000 ounces sticking out of the ground near Winnemucca in Nevada. We think it's a pretty compelling value proposition. The stock options average price 40 cents with warrants at 55 cents. And we've currently got just under $2 million cash available to us. Our commitment to ESG, I believe, is the reason why Newmont chose to partner with us and divest their Sandman asset. ESG is a core value of our companies, and most of us are either ex-Rio Tinto or ex-BHP, so we've really been schooled in ESG, and it's something that we strive to go above and beyond. Introducing you to the key people in Gold Bull. Craig Parry is our chairman. Craig and I founded Gold Bull together, and we go back 20 years when we're working together at Rio Tinto. We've both gone the corporate route and geologist by background. David Johnson is actually a geophysicist, and geophysics, we believe, is going to play a vital role in discovering more ounces in Nevada. It's a scientific technique that's been underutilized in the US, and David brings a wealth of knowledge in that space, which is kind of our differential edge to most explorers here in the US. Some more well-known names in the industry. Regina Malloy relocated to head up the geology team. Walter Coles joined us. Walter's the CEO of Skeena Resources, and Skeena is just a role model company of where a junior wants to go. They've just had immense success with Barrick's non-core assets in Eskay Creek. One of the best things about working here in Nevada is that we're really fortunate to have some very well-known, successful advisors available, such as the names on this slide, over 100 years experience on this slide. In addition to these advisors, we've got a few other geologists who advise us, such as Keith Wood, John Wood and Randy Vance. And again, just those three chaps, about 100 years of experience. And most of them formerly worked for Barrick or Newmont. And when they merged to form Nevada Gold Mines, they let go of a lot of talent. So we've been really eagerly chasing that talent, and in their heads is hundreds of millions of dollars worth of deals, exploration, data, just knowledge, IP in our advisors. So we feel very grateful to have advisors on hand of such high caliber available in this state. So this is an introduction to Sandman. Sandman's currently our flagship project, and it's where the majority of our funds are being deployed. We're halfway complete in a drill program, RC drill program, with over 5,000 metres completed this year, and another 5,000 metres still yet to complete. Currently on a drilling break. The drill rig will recommence around late October, early November. And Sandman is located in low elevation with very good access and logistics, which means there's no problem drilling Sandman 12 months a year. In fact, drilling in the winter is actually sometimes advantageous because it's sandy, the rigs and the trucks don't get bogged when it's frozen ground conditions. We upgraded the resource. The resource has grown by 60% already since being in Gold Bull's possession to now 494,000 ounces. And we've also announced a number of intersections that are well outside that current resource. So we're pretty confident that number is going to grow, and I'll go into some of those results in this presentation. The first half of our drill program has been predominantly focused on resource extension, and we have that 500,000 ounces sitting there, yet we see it open in a number of directions. So we obviously want to grow that, and we think there's excellent potential to grow that. However, we also want to find another major discovery. The known deposits at Sandman are around 100, 150,000 ounces, and there's 4 of them. But we're looking for a multi-million ounce discovery, and that's the main reason we purchased Sandman. Sleeper is a deposit that was one of the highest grade, most profitable deposits in the state. And you can see on this map, Sleeper mine is located only about 25, 30 kilometres to the north of Sandman. Sleeper was discovered by the geologist John Wood, and John Wood is currently advising and mentoring the Gold Bull team on where he would explore for another Sleeper within Sandman. Very similar geology, very similar structures. So it's a model that we're going to be getting in more detail later in this presentation. This is a close-up of the Sandman project. You can see it's over 20 kilometres along strike from one side to the other. It covers very prospective geology. Those little red polygons at Able Knoll, Southeast Pediment, Silica Ridge and North Hill represent our known gold resources. Combine those 4 is what equals about 500,000 ounces of gold. The mineralisation tends to be at surface on most of the deposits and is open in a number of directions. And I'd say that after having John Wood's involvement in mentoring our team rather recently, we've just basically discovered that gold mineralisation has been a massive distraction for the previous explorers. So the project's been explored on and off since the mid-80s. Essentially when Sleeper was discovered is when this area started getting attention. And the company is basically focused or honed in where there was some gold mineralisation at the surface. What they didn't do is take a step back at the bigger picture and really define a model looking for multi-million ounce targets. They were just distracted by these relatively small gold deposits. And as a result, we've got massive data that's really congregated and biased on these 4 little polygons. It's quite telling, although there's been over 1,000 drill holes, less than 2% of those have gone deeper than 250 metres. The vast majority have been less than 100 metres deep. And they've done a good job, again, of defining these 4 small resources, but we're looking for bigger picture. We're looking for multi-million ounce potential, and we believe the historic exploration has really missed the main target. One of the reasons why we decided to go for Sandman was because it has an existing plan of operation that allows us to disturb up to 500 acres. And a plan of operation is a permit that encompasses a wide variety of things such as the environment, the water, cultural resources. And it typically takes years and costs millions to do. And we've got a very high quality plan of operation that we've inherited from Newmont. So that's a real selling point to the company, that we're basically, it's a blank canvas within that area, that polygon, the Sandman polygon. We're able to get on with our exploration without any delays. So John Wood has been working with our team to essentially say, look, the previous explorers have been focusing on this zone. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but they've been focusing where it says previous target zone, which is within the top 100 meters. And geologically, these rocks are about 16 million years old, and they've had some faults, and those faults have brought in gold. And the previous explorers were focused on what we call the paleo water table, which is where we're seeing gold, small deposits of gold mineralization in that pinkish color in the yellow, and adularia and alteration caps. What the previous explorers have neglected is the contact zone between the tertiary rocks, which is basically the young rocks in green, and the basement rocks, which are the old rocks in the cream color beneath. So that contact is particularly important, because you can imagine when there's a fault and there's pressure and hot fluids going along a fault structure, the first place that mineralization is likely to congregate is likely to be on that contact zone between the two different rock types. It's basically an area where a pressure release point. So instead of focusing there, our predecessors have focused on the top zone, which is the paleo water zone, which would have been the second zone of pressure release. So we believe that the multi-million ounce potential is sitting beneath where has ever been explored. And the fact that we've got hardly any holes into this zone is really exciting, because we know we do have surface mineralization amounting to that 500,000 ounces, yet no one's looked for the source of it or the feeder. So John Wood came out with that quote to the right-hand side, which essentially says, it's basically the main target is basically untested. And given that we've got over 15 kilometres of gold anomalism and resources on the surface, it'd be pretty surprising if there wasn't a couple of million ounces sitting beneath there, feeding those smaller deposits on surface. So really exciting. The team is pumped to go test these deeper targets. And when I say deeper, I'm not talking deep in general terms. I'm talking between 200 to 400 metres deep. So it's not that deep when it comes to drilling. We believe an RC rig will be capable of testing most of our targets that are all in that realm of 200 to 400 metres. And this is planned for late October and early November to start. 5,000 metres will be going and deployed into testing this new target zone. So over the next couple of slides, these are some of the spectacular results that we've intersected this year. These are all 2021 Gold Bull drill results. So at our Able Knoll project, we intersected a high-grade breccia. You can see almost 11 grams over 6 metres, and then we've got 100 grams at 2 grams a tonne. So super interesting high-grade numbers coming from Able Knoll. Again, this one remains open, and we will be testing this additionally. These are the deposits that have somewhat been distractions to past explorers, because they remain open. It's a natural place for a geologist to go, is to keep extending them. But our next round of drilling, we're going to take a break from extending these and look for the new sleeper-style deposits. Able Knoll mineralization, again, we've got some pretty interesting hits. Broad, relatively low grade, 0.6 grams a tonne. At Able Knoll, and this one for me is quite significant because it's located only 76 metres beneath the surface and also remains open. So when you're looking at 0.6 grams a tonne in Nevada, I'd also want to see that it's oxidised, and I'd also want to see that the strip ratio is low. And I believe this one ticks both those boxes. We've currently got some samples in bottle roll test work to make sure it is oxidised and therefore amenable to a heap leach operation. So it's another one to watch. Again, we'll be testing that this extension next year. The rest of the drilling this year is again on the main prize. North Hill, additional high-grade numbers. To have 13 metres at going 20 grams a tonne is a sensational intersection, and really indicative that these kind of numbers tell me that there is probably feeder zones happening. At North Hill, we have a 100% oxide gold resource, and nobody has explored for the feeder of it. So North Hill's another one to watch. We're looking for a feeder. Somewhere like North Hill would be a great test for going back to this John Wood expanded model. So this, presume this little pink resource to the left is your North Hill. We're looking for this feeder sitting underneath. And I think North Hill represents a great target there. We've also got some geophysics that points to North Hill having a lot more room to grow. This is a summary of our current gold resource at Sandman. As I mentioned, it's already increased this year, and from the previous slides, I think it's safe to say it's got further room to grow and will be increasing given we've intersected gold mineralization outside Able Knoll, North Hill, and at Silica Ridge. So the company has an aggressive growth strategy to add more ounces, both via exploration and also via acquisition. I'm always on the hunt for new acquisitions and potential M&A activity, and our technical team is focused on adding ounces at our existing projects. So we just went through Sandman. We also have another project called Big Balds, which is located adjacent to Bald Mountain Mine, also in Nevada. It's just about an hour south of Elko. This project is a pretty exciting greenfields early stage project. It's located on the junction of two prolific gold trends called the Carlin Trend and the Bida Trend. And where our project lies is the cross intersection of those two gold trends. It's also located in a nice proximity, less than 10 kilometres away from Kinross's operating Bald Mountain Mine, which boasts a 5 million ounce gold resource. You can see the surface disturbance of the Bald Mountain Mine, and it's trending along this Bida Trend direction. So this area here that we own is 100% gold ball, and it's an area that's never been previously drilled, which I just find absolutely outstanding or astonishing from Australian background. The fact that you've got this proximity to a known 5 million ounce gold resource, you've got the right structures, and you don't have any drill holes in it. So we've done geophysics. We conducted some ground geophysics here. We're targeting based on a combination of magnetics and gravity. And we're fully permitted to whack a few holes in there sometime in Q4. And we're just waiting on a drill rig for this one. So probably November is when they start coming free, typically in Nevada. And again, we can drill this one 12 months a year. It's got excellent access. You can see on this image, we've got the access road to Bald Mountain to utilise. And it's high risk, high reward. We're going to drill about 8 holes, and we're either going to find that our geophysical targets are mineralised and we've got another exceptional project, or if they're not, we'll spend a couple of $100,000 to have that answer. So why gold bull? We've got a lot of news coming up. We're really underpinned by existing 500,000 ounce resource at Sandman, and the main target at Sandman hasn't even been drill tested, which is just crazy given its address. It's located along strike, multi-million ounce known deposits, and it's in the right area code in a mining friendly part of the state next to Winnemucca. So super excited to drill some of the team's conceptual targets, looking for another sleeper at that contact for the basement and tertiary rocks. And Big Balds is also one to watch, located on trend. There's not a lot of trends like that globally that remain open ground and boast geophysical anomalies. So the team is very excited to drill them, and we should have drill holes into both Sandman and into Big Balds in Q4 of this year. Lots of news flow coming. And on the M&A front, actively discussing a number of acquisitions and also merger concepts. Basically, if we'll look at a merger, if 1 + 1 = 3 for our shareholders. And on the acquisition front, there's a number of undervalued projects or resources sitting with companies that are just not interested in pursuing them. For example, our Sandman project. Sandman wasn't of interest to a major 500,000 ounces, but a project like Sandman, where we see multi-million ounce potential, is certainly of interest to Gold Bull. So that's another space to watch where we're actively pursuing. Also very happy with Nevada. It's a great place to operate, and looking forward to seeing what Q4 brings Gold Bull.
Great.
Excellent. I have a quick question for you. Would like to know a little bit about Sandman.
Sorry, what about Sandman, Campbell?
So we'd like to know. Can you mute yourself, guys?
We'd like to know about Sandman, and you reference it. And for people who aren't familiar with the asset and the mine, if you could give us a little more color, since we aspire to be the next Sandman, that would be helpful.
So Sandman's the name of our main project, and that's located near Winnemucca.
I'm sorry, not Sandman. Sleeper, excuse me.
Oh, okay, Sleeper, no problem.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Sleeper, yes. So the famous Sleeper, yes. Excuse me.
No worries. So Sleeper was discovered by Amex in the 80s, and it produced 2 million ounces of gold, and it was going at a high grade, and was one of the most profitable gold mines ever actually produced in the state of Nevada. And it's currently owned by Paramount, and I believe they left behind about 3 million ounces due to a combination of it being refractory and getting close to the groundwater table. But there's 3 million ounces sitting there still, at today's gold price. It's probably worth going back to Paramount to check out the Sleeper project as it is now. But the 2 million ounces of high grade have been extracted. It was an epithermal project that was the bulk of that mineralization was in skinny high grade, feeder zones. And that's exactly what we're looking at Sandman, because it doesn't take a large volume to accumulate significant ounces when you're looking at for these high grade feeders, such as what we see in places at North Hill, for example, that 13 meters going at 20 grams a ton. Those kind of numbers are very close to what we saw at Sleeper before it was mined out.
How much time does John Wood give you on his busy schedule? Is he full time, or is he jumps in and out?
No, he's an advisor who's in and out. About a month ago, he spent a week with us on site. We did a geology team site visit with John, spent a couple of days on site and a couple of days in Winnemucca just fleshing out targets. And at the moment, I think he's spending about a day a week with the team on a weekly day to basically hone in and refine drill targets and essentially work out exactly the best bang for our buck when it comes to testing this new target at the contact.
Great, thank you. And I've got some questions sent in from the audience. Can you talk a little bit about how you see Sandman developing in light of the 15 kilometer strike length, average grade, high grade, low grade areas?
Yeah, sure. So there's two geological targets at Sandman. There's the near surface oxide component, which is the bulk of the existing 494,000 ounces. That's averaging at about 0.7 grams a ton gold, and is majority oxide. So, in Nevada, the sweet spot is around you want at least half a gram a ton. At the moment, I know projects, mines such as Marigold are mining 0.3 grams a ton gold. So at $1,800 gold, or down to 0.3 grams a ton is profitable. But at 0.7 grams a ton is what we've got for that 500,000 ounces. So the majority of that being oxide, I'd look at a heap leach operation. And we're going to be doing some feasibility studies next year to work out the economics of that. In addition to that, we're looking for a high-grade underground operation, essentially, such as a sleeper cell deposit. And there, you're looking at grades similar to what we've got that we've released at Able Knoll and North Hill. We're looking at circa 10 grams a ton over 6 meter wide intervals for the underground targets. So at surface, we've already kind of defined the at surface. I think the previous explorers did a decent job of coming up with those 4 resources to find the 500,000 ounces. And now the main target is going to be the high grade underground targets.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Adam and Stu to take it from here.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Sheree. So, how are you interpreting these kind of high grade interceptions within the broader, lower grade but still good grade, interceptions?
So some of it could be supergene enrichment, and the other alternative is that they're feeder zones coming up through veins or faults and basically being sourced from the mother lode sitting beneath So I think we probably got a bit of both happening. So some supergene enrichment, and also the potential for conduits and feeders to basically use them as vectors and trace back to where that's coming from. There's very little diamond core as well. So, we're using RC. It's hard to really trace them as vectors. So I wouldn't mind a few more diamond holes here, just because it gives us more information on basically how to follow these high-grade shoots.
Yeah. And when would you be planning to do any of that diamond drilling, like next year?
Probably next year. Yeah, probably next year. We're right now we're coming up with several diamond targets and diamond tails. So we want to accumulate our meters to get a contract to come in and do the lot rather than do it in drips and drabs.
Yeah. And have you been running more IP surveys to help kind of refine some of these targets, which I know have helped you in the past?
Yeah, we're a huge fan of IP. IP did a great job of defining our dual targets between North Hill and Silica Ridge. So between this area, we've already conducted the 3D IP, and we've got an IP survey plan between Southeast Pettit and Able Knoll that's due to commence next week, actually, CSAMT.
Great. Does downhole IP help? Have you considered any of that?
No, I don't think we need that.
Kind of look at the underground model.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need the downhole IP. For the downhole, we're getting the comprehensive geochemical suite from the laboratory, and that for us tells us enough of whether we're in the right zone or not.
Got it. And then, did you complete that 3D database of all kind of historical data and everything?
Yes. Since we spoke, we did do that, and that was a bit of a marathon of an exercise. We actually outsourced a lot of the data entry. And we're the first company to actually compile all of the historical data into one database. And now we've got that into a 3D software called Leapfrog. And that's proving hugely powerful. So much of the data was, like in typewriter notes from the labs, from the assay results. So that's all now in a digital form. So previous explorers were essentially coming in and just essentially doing similar work repeatedly. So we've been able to compile that so we can see where the gaps are. And there actually are a number of gaps and areas of this project that have never seen any work. Like you've got kilometres spanned radius with no drill holes, yet compelling geology and anomalies at surface. So it's really been very useful in identifying new targets.
Great. Thanks for that. I'll hand over to Adam.
Hey, Sherry. My recollection was that the Sandman district was largely split up in checkerboard until Newmont bought Frontier and finally consolidated the district. So I assume that is the reason why there are wide spaces of low exploration, historical exploration results. So now that you've got the consolidated district, how is that guiding your exploration efforts?
Yeah, so you're correct. This is checkerboard, and Newmont did consolidate it. So we own the mineral rights for this entire area, and we own the majority of the surface rights for our resources as well. So checkerboard is basically a mix of private, 1 mile by 1 mile private, 1 mile by 1 mile BLM or federal government. So from an exploration perspective, we see them essentially as the same because we own the mineral rights for both private and BLM, and that we go about our environmental responsibilities and community relations the same, whether it be on private or BLM. So I'm not sure whether that has influenced Sandman drilling that much. For us, it's certainly not really something we discriminate on. We're drilling based on the geology versus based on the surface rights.
Well, now this is the first time you have the rights to cross property boundaries that were previously owned by different people. So I'm assuming that there are trends and whatnot that previous owners wanted to drill, but they were running off of their property, and that's why there's probably the kilometers of spacing that you're talking about. So I'm assuming you're looking to fill in those previous identified trends. Is that where you're spending the bulk of your money?
Yeah, for us, we're going to be targeting for basically the new model based on a combination of, we've got historical drilling databases, we've got the geochem, we've got geophysics, and we're doing our additional geochem and geophysics. But there's still gaps in the surface geochem, for example, that you just anticipate. A project that's been doing the rounds for 40 years, you'd expect that it's just been blanketed with geochem, yet there are gaps, because I think that may come down to the fact that the 4 resources have proved a distraction, and they distracted us as well. To be honest, we looked at 500,000 ounces, or let's get that to 1 million ounces type thing, rather than where is another 5 million ounce discovery. And the data biases you as well, because there is an abundance of data on those 4 resources. So I think the fact that we've got gold sticking out of the ground has probably been the main bias as a distraction. But it's going to be interesting now that we do have this consolidated land package. And as you'll be well aware, it's rare to have such a consolidated land package in that checkerboard. I don't know of many other projects in this area that have been consolidated, and that was probably only possible because we've done that deal with Newmont. Otherwise, we would have 1 mile of BLM, 1 mile of Newmont, and it's just hard to consolidate a decent land holding in that manner.
Well, I think the biggest consolidation, obviously, was the formation between Newmont and Barrick of the Nevada joint venture. So from that point, there's been a lot of consolidation in Nevada of the checkerboards. You referenced previously Sleeper. Sleeper, obviously, a big open pit that went through oxide into sulfide. And my recollection was that they were processing the sulfide ore, largely through a conventional CIL circuit. But you mentioned that you thought that they were processing the ore through a refractory circuit. Is my memory incorrect there?
No, your memory is not incorrect. I think to process the rest of the ore, you'd be looking at going refractory. So that I believe there's a couple of million ounces that have been left behind. So there's an opportunity to go for that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the ounces that are left behind are sitting in leach pads that weren't fully leached or needed to be, or were, could have been. I think Paramount put out a PEA showing much of that is in historic leach pads and waste dumps. But also, obviously, they could go, deeper and then on trend. And obviously, they're really on trend with you guys because they're, if you look at your trend, it's northwest, southeast, and they're up to the, northwest of you.
Yeah, for sure. I think this whole area between Sleeper and Sandman is really interesting, very underexplored, for the most part covered by sand dunes. And it's a whole corridor that's been largely neglected that I really like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in the drilling that you guys have been doing, have you guys intersected yet any significant non-oxidized zones?
Most of it's been oxidized, predominantly because we've been also drilling, relatively shallow. At North Hill, for example, 100% is oxidized. At Silica Ridge, the majority is also oxidized. At Able Knoll, and we haven't done any drilling at Southeast Pediment yet, although that one remains open and is also one that we'll probably be looking at to test for feeder zone in the basement. At Able Knoll, we've got a little bit into the fresh transition. And that's when we've got beneath a couple of 100 meters. So, the sulfide's certainly there, but I think it's also a reflection that there haven't been many deep holes. So in the top couple of 100 meters, it tends to be oxidized here, just the weathering profile. And beneath beneath a couple of 100 meters, you tend to get into the transition and fresh sulfide.
And so which of the geophysical measurements are you guys looking at to try to identify the sulfide feeder zones?
So, we're doing a lot of IP or CSAMT resistivity measurements, essentially. And the main purpose of that is to identify alteration. And then, in general, the gold mineralization, when it flows through the rock, has altered the rock. And so we get the resistivity contrast via the rock being altered. So it doesn't pick up mineralization per se, but we're presuming that alteration has brought in the goodies, brought in the gold as the rock has been altered. Not every altered rock is mineralized, so there's never a perfect geophysical technique. However, there's also a strong correlation between mineralization and alteration. So for us at Sandman, we really like that. When we're looking for targets such as breccia pipe, so Able Knoll is a breccia pipe. And when we're looking for breccia pipes, gravity works very nicely. We inherited a gravity survey, I think it was done by Newmont over Able Knoll, and we're really impressed by the gravity. So looking for more Able Knoll type breccias, we would consider doing additional gravity. We also inherited a blanket of detailed magnetics over the project, and that's done a really nice job of identifying structures. I wouldn't say it necessarily indicates mineralization, but when you combine the magnetic structural information with the IP, we get a pretty good targeting drill exercise.
Mm-hmm. And what's your priority, would you say? And what do you think? Do you think there's more oxide to be found? Or are you guys just trying to do a bit of infilling on the oxide and delineation of the edges, because it's low-hanging fruit before you guys are searching for the high-grade feeder zones, presumably that are sulfide?
Yeah, we have like a target, a goal of around 1 million ounces majority oxide, and that stems from increasing and expanding on those known resources. Obviously, that's a goal, and whether it's there or not, we need to do more drilling to work that out. But I think those numbers that we've already announced that were shared in this presentation indicate a number of intersections located outside the known resources that are predominantly oxide materials. So I do think there's room for the oxide to grow. The fact that all those 4 resources, North Eel, Silica Ridge, Southeast Pediment, and Able Knoll, oxide components remain open. And as I mentioned before, we're doing a number of bottle roll tests right now to confirm they are indeed oxide. So I think that's a kind of a loose ballpark number for our oxide target. And beyond that, I think it's more likely going to be sulfide.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a goal in mind as far as how much sulfide you would have to delineate in order to justify your own mill? Or are you considering, or would you consider, shipping either whole or a concentrate off to the Midas mill, assuming it was running once again?
Yeah, priority one is always to define a standalone operation, and we're looking for multi-million ounce projects. So for us, it's the same effort to make a 500,000 ounce mine as it is a 5 million ounce mine. So for us, the size of the prize is definitely multi-million ounce deposits. Same with our Bald Mountain. If we drill that and find 100,000 ounces, we're not going to be bothering with Bald Mountain. Big Bald, next to Bald Mountain. So Big Bald's is the same as Sandman. We're looking for multi-million ounce targets, and if we don't find them, we'll keep rolling the dice until we get a project that's got multi-million ounce potential. It's also located next to Nevada Gold Mines' Turquoise Ridge Twin Creeks facility. And when it was owned by Newmont, there was an abundance of metallurgical test work done on Sandman at that processing facility. So in our 43101 that's available on our website or on CEDA, those recoveries are actual. We're not guessing our recoveries on Sandman. That's what an actual plant put through. We've got over 80% recoveries on all ore types. So I feel that that's another nearby facility that we could also investigate if we did not come up with multi-million ounces of our own.
I'm sorry. So you tested oxide ore at the Nevada Gold Mines facilities, and you're getting 80% recovery through an oxide mill?
We didn't test it. Newmont tested both oxide and sulfide from Sandman at their Turquoise Ridge Twin Creeks mine facility. So we've got recoveries for both the oxide and also the sulfide.
So Newmont drilled into sulfide, hit sulfide at Sandman.
Yes, at the base of Southeast Pediment and Able Knoll and Silica Ridge, you get into it at a couple of 100 meters depth.
So are those the first things you guys are going to be chasing as far as the sulfides?
No, we're not chasing those at all. We're chasing that new contact zone. We believe that if there's multi-million ounces, it's going to be on the contact zone rather than remobilized. We think what we're getting is basically veins and feeders in the current drill program, and we want the source of that. So if you go back to that model, that's what has not been tested. So this is a breakdown of our resource. You can see the breakdown of oxide and unoxidized or fresh. So the bulk of it's certainly oxide, but when you get to the deeper portions of those resources, you do get into the fresh. This has probably overestimated the fresh a little bit because our resource geologist didn't have data for all of the oxide weathering, so he went conservative. But now, like for example, when we re-drilled Able Knoll through that breccia, we've logged it all as oxidized, so that was guessed as fresh just because we didn't have data for it in the resource. So this will change a little bit in our favour, but you still get an appreciation of when you go deeper, you go into the sulfide.
Okay. I think there's probably some additional questions from the audience, so I'm going to hand it back to Campbell.
Yeah, or Artie might have some questions.
Or Artie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a quick question.
I think you're on mute, Artie.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a bit better.
You mentioned the past explorers missed the main target. It is just because of that they were targeting. What was the eye-opener for you to say this?
Yeah, I think previously the focus was much more on the oxide, defining oxide ounces, and you're generally going to find them within the top 100 meters. So also most of the previous explorers were exploring at a gold price of around $500. So the target was just different. The current gold price, it makes sense to be chasing ounces beneath 100 meters and also to be chasing the sulfide targets, the feeder targets. So I think it's a bit of a combination of the historical gold price and also the focus on oxide and us being open to these bonanza feeder zones at a greater depth, so 200 to 400 meters. Just the fact that there's less than 2% of the holes, and including our own holes, it's probably like closer to 1% before we started our drill program. It's just unbelievable that you've had this whole zone neglected. And this model of targeting gold on the contact zone, it's not unique to Sandman. Like some of the major epithermal discoveries in Nevada occur at the contact of two geological rock units. So it's really not rocket science. And it's for me, it's quite surprising that this target remains available. And I do have to credit John Wood with really like shining the light and slapping us around the head a bit and saying, this obvious target is where the focus should be.
Thank you. And you mentioned you have some historical meteorological test results. And what would you say about their, how representative are they today, do you think, when you consider your current targets?
I'd say they're absolutely representative of our current resource. And those tests, it's just not on a couple of RC chips. It's a wide diameter drill core and also bulk samples. Like they've taken tons of material out of Southeast Pediment. There's still the big hole in the ground. So we're very confident that those tests represent the known resources. I really couldn't guess or speculate for our conceptual target what that metallurgical properties would be. So I think we just have to do our own test work once we find more ounces.
And this upcoming bottle roll test, where is the material is gonna come from?
And that came from our RC drill program, and it's being conducted at a site in Reno called Capus Cassidy. And we also have inherited an abundance of the historical data. When we purchased the project from Newmont, there were I think probably a dozen semi-trailer loads of rocks that we're now storing, including RC chips, including bowl samples, including drill core. So we have all that at our storage yard in Winnemucca available. So if we need to do more bulk test work on the known resources, we don't have to go back and drill more holes for the most part. We just go back to Winnemucca storage yard and retrieve more samples.
Thank you. Campbell?
Pleasure.
He's on mute.
For more information, we've got a lot more data on our website, which is www.goldbull.ca, and feel free to sign up for our newsletters on our website as well. We like keeping our shareholders informed and releasing news as it happens. Campbell, do we have a connection?
I think Campbell's frozen, but he was trying to say, if you could just sign off quick, someone just, tuned in lately, what would be like, the highlight takeaway for you?
So high priority drill targets, ready to drill as soon as we get our drill rig back in late October, early November. And they're going to be quite transformational one way or the other for the company because we're looking for multi-million ounces at both projects. And, whether we find them or not is going to determine the direction for next year. And next year, we've got the 500,000 ounces at Sandman. So we'll be looking to put that into feasibility study, but probably doing a resource estimate increase between now and then based on the addition, the 5,000 metres already drilled this year, plus the 5,000 metres we've got to drill. And then we'll work out what resource we've got and determine a path forward for Sandman. And also on the hunt for those additional ounces via that M&A activity. So I'd like to see something transpiring for the company there as well.
Great. Thanks, Sheree. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.